What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 2009 mixtape by Young Jeezy. Basically, this project is called Trappin' Ain't Dead, and it came out in the spring of 2009. Now, this is the follow-up project to Jeezy's highly successful album, The Recession, which came out in the late summer of 2008. Now, it's a particular kind of classic album, and I reviewed that back in September. I gave that particular project like a 10 out of 10. And I would definitely have to say I was hungry for more of like the Recession era vibes off of that particular era of Jeezy. I would have to suppose. I'm definitely glad that this particular project here, Trappin' Ain't Dead, is a lot more of that rendition of Jeezy from late 2008. This came out Trappin' Ain't Dead came out like 7-8 months after the Recession album, so it's just leftover Jeezy vibes off of those Recession type days. And I'm definitely glad for that as far as that pitch, because that was a pretty strong highlighted time for him. So I'm definitely glad that Jeezy didn't lose his sweet spot at that particular point back in those days, just because I kind of overlooked this project back in the day, but I'm glad that I fucked with it now, because it definitely has some highlighted stuff here. The only real weakness to this mixtape for the most part is just the fact that maybe there's a couple, just one that doesn't have a single, and two, that there's not enough type cuts of like the Recession type days. Now there's a good assortment. This is a pretty bulky mixtape at 19 songs, but it kind of keeps some of the old vintage mixtape type fare of having like freestyles to other beats, and those are like the weakest points on this particular project that I just would have to say. Some of the beats that were chosen were just not that hip, and then there's some other songs on here that were actual songs that wound up on albums like Better Believe It from Lil Boozy's album Super Bad, and then I'm Going In from Drake's So Far Gone EP, and some of those type ones. But I would have to say just the particular pitch behind it. Most of these, there's really only two original songs on this particular mixtape that I didn't thoroughly recommend. I'd have to suppose that's a pretty good pitch to kind of get, but still, nonetheless, there's still about like 5 songs out of the 19 I didn't recommend. But I still would have to say it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get this. Not complaining at all about this particular project. Really excellent shot in the arm as far as getting some Recession era Jeezy. So if you love the Recession album, this is basically more vintage Jeezy, and that sort of pitch has the same kind of haunting and ghoulish type vibes. Definite vibes like Vacation and Crazy World and some of those type pitches. Get a Lot, some of those type ones. There's definitely some highlights. What They Want, Who Dat, some of those type pitches that just kind of has that particular vibe. The only real thing that I'd say that this mixtape is really lacking for the most part is just kind of like a nightclub type song. I would feel like this mixtape is lacking like a nightclub type song, but apart from that, I mean, this project is basically like a lot of ride out type tunes and residential type night fare as far as that pitch kind of have in the same sort of similar vein to the Recession. So if you like those kind of residential type house party type tunes of the Recession, this has a lot of those. A lot of songs like Crazy World and some of those type pitches that just kind of have a lot more just residential type shindigs and things like that. Just kind of more social outing in a residential sense. Just some of those more kind of localized type ones. Not to say that this is a poor project. It's just kind of the concept. This is basically like the step brother, or like the cousin, the brother of the cousin. Trappin' Ain't Dead is basically like the brother or the cousin of the Recession. Same sort of pitch. Just this is free music just within that aspect. It just doesn't have any singles on it, but I would have to say it's pretty damn well quality just within that pitch of kind of getting it. So it just doesn't really have like, I mean, if you're looking for a song like Taking It There or something like that, or Put On, it doesn't have a song like Put On, unfortunately, but it does have a good quality of other particular projects to kind of get on here. It just doesn't really have like a nightclub type song, but it does have that same residential type, spooky type fare that that particular Recession project kind of has. So some good pitches kind of get that. But we'll go ahead and talk about the songs I recommend on here. So out of 19 songs, I wound up recommending to you 10. So out of 19 songs in this particular project, I wound up recommending to you 10 and a half plus 3 almost songs. So the 3 almost songs would just be Air Forces 2, Better Believe It, and I'm Going In. The 3 almost songs would just be Air Forces 2, Better Believe It, and I'm Going In, which is kind of the concept about that. I guess there's 4 almost songs, but those are the 3 of them are almost songs just because you can find them on other projects. So Air Forces 2 is just done it off of Jeezy's Recession, the deluxe edition. So I would just recommend getting the deluxe of Jeezy's Recession as far as that pitch kind of happens, because Done It's a pretty awesome song, so I definitely recommend that one. Better Believe It's on Lil Boozy's album, and then I'm Going In, the official version, is on Drake's So Far Gone EP, so it's the same concept about that particular one. But then the Underdog is kind of an almost song. Talk about this one. Talk about the Underdog. This is basically like a vintage kind of 2000s era Don Cannon mixtape type cut, I would have to say. It's very much some city stepping pep and kind of showy pizzazz that this song particularly kind of has, but it's an almost song just because this one's not quite as compelling as like the normal Don Cannon type fare that Jeezy did in like the 2000s, the mid 2000s. I feel like more in like the Trap or Die and Can't Ban the Snowman type days Days. This had better pitches of this Don Cannon type style. Feels more like a revisit more so than like a full blown embrace of it. It's not like that's a bad thing. It's just kind of the concept. I feel like the mid 2000s, 2004, 2005, 2006 Jeezy just nailed those Don Cannon vibes. The mid 2000s Jeezy just nailed those Don Cannon vibes a lot better. It's just kind of the concept, but it is good to kind of get some more of these. I'm glad that he's still doing these as far out as 2009 and stuff. As far as that kind of particularly kind of happens with this, that's a nice one. But I'm gonna go ahead and recommend like the 10 songs I recommend, the 10 and a half songs I recommend, then we'll get to some of these. So the 10 and a half songs I recommend would be basically the 10 and a half songs I recommend would be Biggest Movie Ever, Consistent, Dead or Alive, First Name, Last Name, Get a Lot Remix, Might Just Blow That, My Money, Ready to Ride, She's a Lesbian, Sunny Days, and the almost song is The Underdog. So I already talked about The Underdog. So a real surprising highlight on this particular project is She's a Lesbian. Definitely enjoyed this one. This is like a simmering kind of ladies summer haze of a song, I'd have to say. This is a great vacay kind of bop, definitely, and it's just a sunny relaxation kind of gem. So this is definitely a pretty highlighted one. This just has a real kind of light. This one just has some light kind of Spanish guitar licks on the particular song. It's a great kind of sunny weather type tune. Just great for some warm kind of summer haze as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. Just and it's not like a scorching hot kind of day. It's just kind of a simmering type tune, just a little bit more laid back, just R&R type stuff as far as that pitch. As far as that pitch kind of particularly kind of happens, just a nice one. Speaking of sunny days, the song Sunny Days is a pretty good highlight also. This is kind of a peppy but spooky kind of bravado of a song, I'd have to say. It's pretty similar to My President, definitely, and it's just kind of a leery kind of gallivanting bob. So I definitely appreciate this one. If you like My President, but you just want that particular song in a more haunting sense, a little bit more eerie and just kind of spook of like a feel overall towards it with some bravado about it, this is a good song to kind of have for that sort of pitch. Just kind of one, it reminds me of something like just some of those songs off the Recession with some more bravado, like Who Dat or some of those particular ones. There's some other ones on there. I can't really remember the whole album. It's been since like September, October since I really listened to Recession deeply like that. But I have to say there's some more bravado type ones. There's like some ones like definitely like with the kind of snappy tempo of like Crazy World, but with like the bravado of My President, some of those type ones to kind of get within that particular pitch. But Sunny Days is just a pretty nice one to kind of have for like some gallivanting just within a sheer kind of pep of just the atmosphere, just kind of being in a pretty optimistic mood, I'd have to suppose. That's a nice one. And then another good highlight on here would be Biggest Movie Ever. This is kind of like a nightclub song. I guess this is kind of a club song. I forgot about this one. This is like a vanilla kind of commercial club tune, I'd have to suppose. This is like some great promo snaps, and this is a clean flex cut, I'd have to suppose. So this is a pretty nice highlighted one. Definitely like the appeal of this particular one. This one feels just pretty vanilla and commercial. This one just feels pretty vanilla and commercial overall, I'd have to suppose. This is a pretty clean vanilla commercial type tune, I'd have to suppose. Just a real nice highlighted one. Just kind of more vanilla Jeezy just within that aspect of kind of getting that one. It's kind of interesting going to get some of this because this is kind of one that would have almost been like a single, but this one doesn't really fit the rest of the mixtape in terms of like the normal Recession type fare. That's just in a darker sense and more kind of haunting type fare, but it is a nice one to kind of get to break away from some of that and just have some commercial type vibes for like a mixtape type feel as far as that pitch kind of happens. Because the way that this kind of particularly portrays is just kind of a type tune that just kind of works with something. It's just kind of having a big night at the club, something like that. Just really make, like the song says, making the biggest movie ever. Just really getting crunk and stuff like that. Just kind of in a more kind of pizzazz type tone. Just kind of in a more pizzazz type tone of it and having some promo snaz as far as that particular aspect kind of goes with this. So that's a pretty nice highlighted one. Definitely a pretty ritzy type one just within a flashiness of that sort of concept. I definitely like the appeal of it. It's a good, nice one. Dead or Alive is a pretty good highlight. This is like a creeping kind of Recession-like trap cut, I'd have to suppose. This goes great with like the Recession playlist. So this is just a very much, this just feels like if you were to listen to this with certain folks, they'd probably think that you're just listening to the Recession. That's how similar this particular song kind of has within that pitch of kind of getting that. So that's a pretty nice highlighted one. I definitely enjoy all these particular ones, just seeing how thoroughly that I enjoyed the Recession. Definitely appreciate a lot of these. I'm glad that these songs are free just within that aspect because this is like a bonus kind of package. This is like a 1-2 punch to get with the Recession. You get the Recession, then you get Trappin' Ain't Dead because it's the same kind of creeping, haunting type pitch with just a lot of these for some residential smokage and stuff like that, just kind of night outings and things like that. The Get a Lot remix is a pretty good highlight also. This has Boo Rossini on there. If you don't know who Boo is, if you know the song Icy by Gucci Mane, that Jeezy's on, the third cat that's on that song is Boo. He also goes by Boo Rossini. It's a pretty good song. He's on the remix here. So this is like the same song with like the old homie Boo on this particular song. It adds more social kind of celebratory type glamour to it, I'd have to suppose. It's a pretty good highlight to kind of get that. Definitely makes it kind of more like a ritzy kind of Get a Lot remix, kind of makes this particular song more of like a social kind of affair, more so than just like a a personable kind of cut. This kind of makes it with a little bit more of like pizzazz towards it, and just some celebratory type tone that kind of makes it for a little bit more, for a lot more kind of pizzazz kind of social outings I'd have to suppose. I really like the concept of getting this particular one. It's not often that I like remixes with the same beat and just that sort of stuff just within the same context and pitch, but I feel like this particular one adds some flavor to it to just give it like some extra kind of social commentary as far as that pitch kind of happens with this. So it's a pretty good highlighted one to kind of get this one. Ready to Ride's a pretty nice highlight also. This is like a ghostly kind of autumn ride out music of a song, I'd have to suppose. This is similar to What They Want off the Recession, I would definitely feel like, and this is just some exciting glaze of some music here, I would have to suppose. This is a pretty good highlighted one. This is kind of more of like a sing-songy. Ready to Ride is more of like a sing-songy type one, just in Jeezy's sense of doing it, I would have to suppose. Definitely a pretty highlighted one. Just kind of, there's another song where Jeezy's like, I'm stressed out. Like, I think Vacation, he kind of sings on that one. I'm stressed out, so tired. I think that's like a song that Jeezy particularly sings on. He does the chorus just similar to like Ready to Ride, some of that type of stuff. I want to say that it's actually Vacation where he sings like that on that particular one, but it's a good concept to kind of get that one. It's real kind of haunting and ghastly and ghostly type one to kind of have within that particular pitch. That's a pretty good highlighted one. Definitely should take you back to Recession in late 2000s days, early the Obama years, that sort of pitch as far as some of those pitches kind of have with it. Just some good stuff. Consistent is a pretty good highlight. This is almost like a nightclub song. This is like a dark kind of electric glitz with like some ghoulish feels about it. I'd have to suppose. It's like a mini nightclub hit, definitely. This is like a mini nightclub hit, I'd have to say, and it's like a mid-social kind of hit. So this is kind of some social outings just within like a mid-graze kind of sense, just within that sort of pitch where the energy is just not quite as sheerly turned up as it needs to be, but it's still a good concept to kind of get some of these, just kind of some in-between type moments, some smokage sessions, some stuff like that. Some dap getting some just entry kind of stuff, or just relative 8:30, 9:30 p.m. is like the club is brewing some stuff like that as far as that pitch kind of happens. But this is a pretty consistent beat. Definitely like this one. This is a pretty highlighted beat. Definitely enjoyed this one. This is probably one of the few nightclub songs on here apart from like Biggest Movie Ever, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good highlighted one, but it's just kind of, this one's more in a Recession type genre. There's not certain songs I feel like it's similar to off the Recession, but I feel like this pretty much feels like a Recession leftover, I'd have to suppose. So it's a pretty good highlighted one. And then a song that definitely reminds me of My President is Might Just Blow That. This has a pretty hazy type beat, I would have to suppose. Definitely pretty ghoulish and malaise type one, I'd have to suppose. It's very similar to My President and Vacation off the Recession. I would definitely feel like this very similar to My President and Vacation off the Recession, I would have to suppose. It just has some woozy bravado about it, and this is a pretty good ride out type bop, I would definitely feel like. So if like the My President song's getting tiresome, this would be a good pitch to kind of have in the tape deck or as a playlist, something like that. Might Just Blow That's a little bit more of a beleaguered type song compared to My President, but they both work as like a pretty good 1-2 punch. It's the same sort of stuff. I feel like if My President's like a song you play at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock p.m., something like that, I feel like Might Just Blow That would be at like 4:35 p.m., something within that certain pitch. I'd say these could pretty much be in like the same playlist, definitely. Same sort of woozy bravado. This one's just a little bit more drug oriented, a little bit more woozy compared to My President, where that one was just a lot more of like kind of snappy kind of candor and just stuff like that, just really kind of optimistic and just militant almost, and like its bravado about it, or really just adamant and like its bravado about it, I'd have to suppose. But Might Just Blow That's just a little bit more woozy, a little bit more dreary, just the aspect of just a little bit more kind of malaise about it. But I do like the particular pitch of this particular one. It's a pretty good highlight to kind of get that. Definite good ride out song to kind of have here. And it also has some vibes like Vacation also. It's just kind of that wooziness factor, some of that just within that ghostly kind of sense. That's a pretty good highlighted one. Then First Name, Last Name's another highlight. This one's pretty similar to Crazy World. I would definitely feel like this is just a riotous mixtape kind of haunting gem. I would definitely feel like it's a pretty creeping kind of hit. So I definitely appreciate this particular one. It's a lot of these type ones to kind of get some of these. I feel like this two singles off the Recession that this mixtape does not particularly replicate would be Put On and then Who Dat, which are those are some particularly kind of more riveting type songs. I would say that this mixtape does have a certain amount of energy about it, just within a certain kind of sense, but a lot of this is just kind of more smoke sessions. I just would have to suppose kind of ride out music, kind of homey type music. It's kind of ride out type music, summer kind of haunting type music, kind of homey type music. Definitely some autumn. This is some haunting kind of autumn ride out music, definitely, and it has a similar pitch to like the Recession, but it just doesn't have like the sheer kind of craziness factor in terms of that particular vibe. I mean, it does have some gems on here. I would definitely feel like a lot of these are some great kind of brewing type songs, and overall just good vibes, good mood type feels. So if you're looking for mood music and stuff like that, there's definitely some good overall haunting type vibes. But I would still have to say the Recession has the more mammoth and monolith type hits in terms of like the party stars and kickstarts and things like that. But I would have to say there's definitely some good gems on here that'll make you feel good. So it's just kind of the concept, or I feel like in terms of the energy and the overall carnivorousness that just has the electricity of just being affable, I'd say that the energy off this particular mixtape is like a 7 or a 7.5. But in terms of like the quality of these songs, we'll get to the score as far as that kind of happens. But it's definitely some good quality stuff on here. It's just kind of the concept that songs like Who Dat and Crazy World and Put On and some of those type ones, some of the craziest type songs and Taking It There, some of the craziest type songs off the Recession are just not on this particular mixtape, but still pretty damn good, I'd have to suppose. So we'll go ahead. I think I haven't talked about My Money. I think that's another one I haven't really talked about, so I'm going to talk about that one also. This is like a leery kind of ghostly spook of a song, I'd have to suppose. This is similar to Crazy World, definitely. It's just kind of a ghoulish ambient outing of a song, I'd have to suppose. So it's a pretty good highlighted one. My Money is Jeezy on some of his ghastly kind of haunting type vibes. So this is another stock hit for the mixtape, I would have to suppose. That's a pretty good highlighted one to kind of get some of these. So that's basically the concept about this particular mixtape. Me recommending at least 10.5 out of the original songs out of 19 on this particular mixtape, plus 3 almost songs. That have to suppose that's a pretty good pitch. That's a pretty good pitch of a score to give this particular project. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this mixtape like an 8.5 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty damn good. Just really missed it by just a few whiskers. I'd have to suppose. To talk about some of these ones I didn't recommend on here, like this Trap Files and Trappin' Ain't Dead are the only real 2 original songs I didn't mess with that much, and these are just kind of poor instrumentals that just didn't do a lot for like the energy. I think some of these were trying to be like some ghoulish kind of haunting type ones, but they just didn't deliver that well. Didn't really have that interesting to song topics and things like that, and just overall composition as to how these kind of hit. These were just kind of loose kind of ones that just didn't do a lot of damage and just kind of missed the mark in a lot of ways. I just would have to suppose these were just not very good highlights to kind of speak of in much sense. I'd have to say about that, about those particular ones. And then the 3 mixtape songs that were just kind of freestyles to other songs and stuff like that just didn't really drive the album that much. I feel like the Stupid freestyle was just kind of a poor instrumental. Didn't really do much for the. I mean, I don't think I would have liked the original song either. So it's just kind of the concept. That wasn't a very enjoyable one. My first 48 hours was not a very enjoyable one either. That just kind of had a poor production. It was not very compelling listen. Didn't really keep attention that well as far as that pitch can happen. And that song's a pretty short song, so that says something if it can't keep attention for just like a minute and a half. And then Always Strap freestyle is just kind of a poor one. Didn't really enjoy that particular production that much. That's the Birdman song, but I just didn't really enjoy that one that much. That's kind of the concept. But yeah, the score gets an 8.5 out of 10. The social score I'm going to give a 9.5 out of 10 because I definitely feel like this is a pretty quality stuff here. Like a lot of these are just the social affability is just off the charts on this particular project. This mixtape definitely reincarnates the Recession album. I would definitely have to feel like it's just got some pretty good outing type fare, some residential smoking sessions in like a haunting sense. So I definitely had to say it's got some pretty good perks. This is definitely a mixtape with some perks. It's just a vivacious kind of time that reinvigorates the concept of the Recession and really nails it on most cylinders. I'd have to suppose. It's just some pretty quality stuff just within the pitch of kind of getting that particular thing. This really works. It's a great 1-2 punch. Get the Recession, download this tape. You'll definitely have some excellent kind of times. It's just some great kind of residential type fare in like a haunting sense. So it's definitely some good concepts to kind of get that. So in terms of the future, like Jeezy has dropped the double album in November 2023. And that's pretty, and we'll have to see what's up with that particular one. But there's some other stuff I'm going to get to here. There's definitely some more ones. Like I do want to get to TM103 and some of those type ones within that particular pitch. So there are some other gems to kind of get here. But this is a pretty rock solid and above average Jeezy mixtape here. I definitely think just because I gave it, I mean, an 8.5 is nothing to sneeze at, but just realize the quality that the Recession is definitely a 10 out of 10 project, and this is like a bonus. This one is like a bonus package to kind of get just for extra kind of sagas of like the Recession era, so I definitely highly recommend that.